Welcome to our lecture on vectorial capacity. Today, we are going to explore one of the most fascinating and crucial concepts in epidemiology and zoology. If you have ever wondered how scientists predict whether a mosquito-borne disease will fizzle out or turn into a massive epidemic, you are in the right place. We will build this concept from the ground up, so do not worry if you are completely new to it. Let us dive in. To understand vectorial capacity, imagine you are running a very dangerous delivery service where the packages are actually infectious diseases. If you want to know how many packages will be successfully delivered in a single day, you need to look at several different factors. You would need to know how many delivery drivers are working, how fast they drive, how often they pick up new packages, and how long they survive on the dangerous roads. Vectorial capacity is exactly this concept, but applied to insects, like mosquitoes delivering pathogens to humans. By understanding all the moving parts of this biological delivery system, we can figure out exactly how fast a disease will spread through a population. Now that we have our delivery service analogy, let us look at the formal scientific definition. In epidemiology, vectorial capacity is defined as the average number of potentially infective bites that will ultimately be delivered by all the vectors feeding on a single infectious host in one day. Let us unpack that. It assumes that one sick person enters a completely healthy population. It then calculates how many new infectious mosquito bites will result from that one person in a single day. This metric beautifully combines the insect's ecology, its biting behavior, and its lifespan into one single powerful number that represents the total transmission potential in a specific area. You might be wondering, why do we need such a specific metric? Understanding this concept is absolutely critical for public health officials and disease control experts around the world. If we do not know the vectorial capacity of a mosquito population, we are essentially fighting a disease blindfolded. This number tells us whether a small outbreak will naturally die out on its own or explode into a massive, uncontrollable epidemic. Furthermore, it helps us decide exactly which control methods will be the most effective for a specific region. For example, it shows us mathematically why handing out bed nets might be good, but spraying insecticides to shorten the mosquito's lifespan is often vastly superior. This brings us to the mathematical heart of the topic. To calculate this transmission potential, scientists use a famous equation known as McDonald's formula, developed in the 1950s to combat malaria. Let us break down every symbol. C represents the vectorial capacity itself. The variable M stands for vector density, or mosquitoes per human. If M increases, transmission goes up. The variable A represents the biting rate. Notice that A is squared. This is because the mosquito must bite twice to transmit the disease, once to pick up the pathogen and a second time to inject it. The variable P is the daily survival rate, and N is the incubation period of the pathogen. So P to the power of N is the probability the mosquito lives long enough to become infectious. Finally, the denominator, negative natural log of P, represents the daily mortality rate. Before we move on, let us see this with a concrete example. Imagine a village where health workers find 10 mosquitoes for every person, so M equals 10. Each mosquito bites once every 2 days, giving a daily biting rate of 0.5. The daily survival probability is 90%, so P equals 0.9. The parasite takes 12 days to develop, so N equals 12. We want to find the secondary infective bites from one infected person. First, we square the biting rate, giving 0.25. Next, we calculate the survival probability over the 12-day incubation period, which is 0.9 to the 12th power, or about 28.2%. Then, we find the daily mortality rate for our denominator, which is 0.105. Plugging these into our formula, we get approximately 6.71. This means one infected person generates about 6.71 new infective bites per day. This indicates a high risk of an outbreak. Now that we have calculated the baseline, let us look at how we can intervene. Suppose a health organization wants to reduce the spread of malaria in that exact same village. They decide to spray the inside of houses with a safe, targeted insecticide. This chemical does not kill all mosquitoes instantly, but it reduces their daily survival rate from 90% down to 80%. So our new p-value is 0.8. All other factors, including the density of mosquitoes, the biting rate, and the incubation period, remained exactly the same. A 10% drop in daily survival might seem small, but as we are about to see, it has a massive impact on the mosquito population's ability to transmit the disease. Let us recalculate the vectorial capacity using our new daily survival rate of 0.8. We want to see how this seemingly small 10% drop affects the overall transmission potential. First, we calculate the new survival probability. Because the mosquito must survive 12 consecutive days, we calculate 0.8 to the power of 12. The result is 0.068. This means now only 6.8% of mosquitoes live long enough to become infectious, a massive drop from the previous 28%. Next, we calculate the new daily mortality rate for our denominator, which is 0.223. Mosquitoes are dying off much faster. Finally, we put the pieces together. 10 times 0.25 times 0.068 divided by 0.223. Our final answer is approximately 0.76. So we have used this formula twice, and the results are striking. Let us mathematically prove why targeting the adult mosquito survival rate is so incredibly powerful. In this first chunk of our proof, we compare the survival probabilities. Without insecticides, the probability of a mosquito surviving the 12-day incubation period was 28.2%. With insecticides dropping the daily survival by just 10%, the overall survival probability plummeted to 6.8%. If we take the ratio of these two probabilities, we see that a mere 10% decrease in daily survival caused a massive 76% drop in the number of mosquitoes that actually live long enough to become infectious. This proves the extreme vulnerability of the mosquito during the incubation period because the survival rate is raised to an exponent. Continuing our mathematical proof, let us look at the final vectorial capacity values. By simply reducing the daily survival rate by 10%, the vectorial capacity plummeted from 6.71 down to 0.76. This is a monumental victory for public health. In epidemiology, the critical threshold is 1. Because our new value of 0.76 is less than 1, the disease will eventually die out. Why? Because each infected person is now generating less than 1 new infection on average. The chain of transmission is broken. This mathematical proof explains exactly why targeting adult mosquito survival with insecticides is the most powerful way to stop a malaria outbreak, far more effective than just reducing mosquito density. Now that we have proven how the math works, let us visualize the entire system. What you are seeing here is a schematic diagram of the components of vectorial capacity. In the center, we have our ultimate metric, vectorial capacity, represented by C. Notice the 4 boxes feeding into it. At the top, vector density represents the sheer number of mosquitoes. On the left, the biting rate shows the interaction between mosquito and human. On the right, the incubation period represents the pathogen's development time. And at the bottom, the survival rate dictates whether the mosquito lives long enough to connect all these steps. This diagram beautifully summarizes how ecology, behavior, and biology all converge into one predictive number. We have covered a lot of ground today, so let us reinforce the most important ideas. First, vectorial capacity is the ultimate measure of how effectively an insect population can spread a disease. It is not just about how many mosquitoes there are. It combines vector density, biting habits, and survival rates into one predictive number. Second, and perhaps most crucially, the insect's daily survival rate has an exponential impact on disease transmission. As we saw in our calculations, a small drop in daily survival causes a massive collapse in transmission potential. Finally, the ultimate goal of disease control is to push this metric below 1. By understanding and calculating vectorial capacity, we can design highly effective, targeted interventions to save human lives. You now have a solid understanding of this vital epidemiological concept.